Hey, good people. Welcome into Psychology Noir. Dr. Lund here. Today we're going to talk about filicide, a term that's used to describe the act of a parent intentionally causing the death of their own child or their children. The term can be used to refer to both mothers and fathers who commit this tragic, horrific act. Filicide can take various forms, including homicide, which is the deliberate killing of a child, infanticide, which is the killing of an infant, or neonaticide, the killing of a newborn within the first 24 hours of life. Parents murdering their children can differ in their motivations, the circumstances, and even the methods of murder. In some instances, parents premeditate the murder of their children, such in the recent example of 32-year-old Chad Doerman, a father of 3 sons who lived in Ohio, and only within the last few weeks shot and killed his 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and 7-year-old sons.
Say he confessed to shooting and killing his 3 boys.
In an act of just incomprehensible cruelty, the father that stands before you lined up his 3 young boys, and he executed them in his own home with a rifle.
Assistant Prosecutor David Gast said Doerman told police that one of his boys ran to a nearby field, but Doerman said he got the boy, dragged him back to the property, and killed him. Gast said Doerman also shot his wife in the hand when she grabbed the gun, attempting to save her children.
We can't name a person that poses a greater threat to the community.
The judge granted the prosecution's request for a $20 million bond.
In addition, it was noted when Doerman confessed to the murders of his 3 sons, which he basically did immediately following killing them, he also reported that it was premeditated and he had been planning the murders of his children for at least a few months. Now, the term filicide is not a legal term, and it's not a diagnosis that's recognized as a specific mental health disorder or a diagnosis from the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Diagnoses. However, it's used within a few disciplines such as psychology, criminology, social sciences, really to categorize and study cases of parental-child killings. Now, there are a number of pathological issues that seem to be motivating factors in cases where parents murder their children. Of course, one of the biggest issues has to do with mental illness. Parents who commit filicide can certainly experience severe mental health issues that affect their judgment and behavior. Conditions like major depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and for some women, postpartum depression with psychosis can impair people's ability to think rationally and make sound decisions. Psychotic symptoms such as hallucinations, delusions, hearing voices, seeing things that aren't real, definitely will distort somebody's perception of reality and could lead to tragic outcomes. Personal issues and stress can significantly cause difficulties where parents become more susceptible to extreme emotional distress, which can then escalate to acts of violence. Things like financial strain, unemployment, mounting debt, legal problems. All these issues can create overwhelming stress or feelings of hopelessness. Relationship conflicts, separation, divorce can also exacerbate these challenges and again increase the risk of violent behavior. Certainly an increase in violence, domestic abuse, increased because of the effects and the byproducts of COVID, of the universe shutting down and people sheltering at home, which then really exacerbated issues with family dynamics and relationships, where dysfunctional family environments, there were ongoing conflicts, domestic violence, high levels of tension, children becoming the victims of their parents' distress, where parents who perceive threats to their authority, their control, their sense of self, really become impatient, more violent, and some resulting in murdering their children as a means of punishment, revenge, or power assertion. They may hold this distorted belief about protecting their children from imagined harm, or believe that killing them is a way to spare them from a perceived future of suffering, which can be related to more of a psychotic behavior and psychotic hallucinations and delusions. Also, parents that are facing challenging circumstances may feel very isolated and really lack the necessary support systems or resources to cope effectively. Oftentimes, there is either limited access to mental health services or counseling or parenting programs that really can hinder their ability to manage stress, or their own families did not create a sense of confidence or an ability to cope with issues or resolve issues appropriately. And so they may have come from abusive or violent past parenting environments. And then there's the pathology of parents who are abusive and resort to murdering their children to exert control over either the other parent or punish them emotionally. Killing their children can be a way that they inflict the deepest pain possible on the other parent, or to use them as bargaining tools in an attempt to reconcile or regain some kind of control in the relationship. The presence of any kind of ongoing violence in the household puts both the partners and the children at a heightened risk for harm. And we'll talk about another example of this in the Adam Montgomery case. Now, just trying to put together a psychological profile on Chad Doerman. We know a few things about him, and I'm sure in time more information will become more apparent. However, neighbors had reported that he drank a lot. He always seemed angry. He was always yelling at his wife and his kids. And that in 2010, he did have a DV charge of choking his father. Just watching his behavior from the body cam when the police had gone to arrest him, he was sitting on the porch with the rifle sitting next to him. He had just killed all three of his boys. Couldn't tell at first if, as the cops were yelling at him to put his hands up, if he was looking at them or just staring straight ahead. However, when they approached him, he did put his hands up, but interestingly, he reassured them that he wasn't going to hurt anybody. He sounded calm, lucid. They took him down, put the cuffs on him, during that time, he's also giving them advice on how to deal with his dog so that they didn't get bit. He almost seems like he was somewhat in a fugue state, that he was able to sound coherent, but that he wasn't quite there, understanding what he had just done to his children. The one behavior that he did do that makes me wonder if there is any history of mental health issues or psychosis, or if he was psychotic during this time, is that he admitted to the killings of his children and gave the police details about the entire incident, where many times people who have been psychotic are usually upfront and confess to the murders, sometimes explaining why they did it, and sometimes they're not able to express it. It seems like if neighbors described him as always angry or drinking a lot, we don't know if he has any addiction history, if there's any drug usage that's associated with his past behaviors. A lot of those type of things would play into it. It just strikes me that he is the type of person that has a low frustration tolerance and poor coping skills. We don't know anything about his relationship, his marriage, but if you have 3 young boys, you're going to have a lot of chaos going on in the house. He also had a stepdaughter who was the one that ran to the police or the fire station across the street from where they lived and reported what was going on at the house. However, it didn't sound like he made any attempt to harm her, and the mother did get shot in the hand as she was trying to, I believe, take away the rifle to stop him from killing the children. But after he did in fact kill all 3 boys, interestingly, he did not go back to shoot the mother. So there's some things that fit and that don't fit. Again, more information I'm sure we will get as time goes on to evaluate the pathologist or the pathology of this man in looking at what were the red flags that he was demonstrating before this horrific event happened. I'm also sure in time we'll find out more information about if he was abusive with the kids, abusive to his wife, someone who had a short fuse, angered easily. And we do know he has one charge from 2010 where he apparently choked his father. His father made an interesting comment when this all happened and basically said that he loved his son, he was angry with him about what he had done, but he didn't want anybody bad-mouthing his son. I thought that was an odd choice of words. It's not so much people will be bad-mouthing him, but people will want him dead for killing these 3 precious children. And so that'll be interesting to see if we find out more about his history with his own parents and family and how he grew up. Again, we're looking for pathology and some of these red flags that always are there, not always caught or noticed or addressed before horrible things happen. But yeah, they're always there. And now what I want to do is turn my attention to a second male parent who is accused of killing his daughter, Harmony, who was 5 years old at the time. And this seems to be a bit of a different pathology, at least from what we know so far about the difference between Doerman and Montgomery. So let's take a look at Montgomery. Now, although at this point in time, Adam Montgomery has not gone to trial yet for the murder of his daughter, Harmony, who was 5 years old at the time of her murder, we're kind of jumping the gun because of an affidavit that was unsealed that Harmony's stepmother provided a lot of horrific details about how Adam abused Harmony, which ultimately ended up in her death. Now, the pathology in Harmony's death by her father, who clearly, from what we know, who's already gone to trial on weapons charges, really has a criminal background, a drug abuse background, has been abusive to Harmony, that other people had noted that she at times had black eyes from Adam punching her in the face. So again, we've got a sadistic pathology. And Harmony's story is very different. Her murder was covered up for a couple of years, where the family never reported her missing, which, from the affidavit, apparently the stepmother knew that Harmony was dead, that had been murdered by Adam. And in her affidavit, she notes, Kayla, who is the stepmother, stated that on the day they were living in their Chrysler Sebring, it broke down on 12/7/19. Adam Montgomery struck Harmony, which caused her death. Kayla stated that while they were living in the vehicle together, Adam was extremely upset that 5-year-old Harmony was not saying when she needed to go to the bathroom and having accidents in the car. Kayla stated that after each accident, Adam would get upset and would strike Harmony in the face with a closed fist. In addition, as you see on the screen, other affidavit takeaways is that Harmony suffered repeated blows on various occasions at the hands of Adam. And on December 7th, 2019, Adam said, "I think I really hurt her this time." Adam, Kayla, and their children were living in the Chrysler Sebring at the time. Kayla told police that at least 20 minutes passed before she and Adam realized Harmony was not breathing after being hit, and they gave her no medical attention. Adam simply put Harmony's dead body into the bag and walked it back to the parking lot. So there again, the pathology of hiding the body. There's periods of time in the affidavit that talks about how Harmony's body was moved from the car to a cooler in Kayla's mother's apartment, and then in a ceiling vent at a transition shelter until people complained about the smell. And Kayla and Adam's apartment, they put Harmony's body inside of a refrigerator. And finally, the body was put into a maternity bag. Adam rented a U-Haul and disposed of Harmony's body to an unknown location. So I'm sure you all can see both incidents have horrible outcome between Doerman and Montgomery. But you can see some differences in pathology, at least from what we know at this point. And we know more about Montgomery because the case has been more open. It's been in the news more. He's already been on trial and found guilty of selling guns, as well as issues with drugs. And so you can see more sociopathic-like behaviors for the cover-up, moving the body, and you have the stepmother who is complicit with these behaviors. And we don't know how much she took part in the abuse of Harmony. So, of course, men aren't the only folks that commit murders against children. There are certainly a number of cases where mothers do it as well, and some of them are interesting. The one thing I found with some cases with mothers that I have not found with fathers committing murder is like in the Susan Smith's case, where in 1994, she was a mother from South Carolina who strapped her two young sons into their car seats and let her car roll into a lake, causing their deaths. She initially claimed that an unidentified carjacker had abducted her children, but then later confessed to the crime. Her actions were actually driven by an affair she was having with an older, wealthier man who had written her a letter breaking up with her, stating he wasn't ready to be in a committed relationship that included children. So this is something that there have been some women in history that have killed their children because of a relationship where the man did not want children as a package deal, so to speak. And as far as I know, I have not heard of that ever happening with a male killing their children because a woman didn't want to have children as part of the relationship. In another infamous filicide, where a mother sacrifices her children just to be in a relationship, is the case of Diane Downs, who in 1983 pulled her car over to the side of a rural road in Springfield, Oregon, and shot her 3 children multiple times. She then fired a round into her own arm before driving to a hospital to claim that a bushy-haired stranger had assaulted her family during a terrifying carjacking. At first, the authorities believed her story until her one child, who recovered from having a stroke at 8 years old, was able to tell the authorities it was Diane who shot them, not a stranger. So let's follow the Chad Doerman case as well as the Adam Montgomery case and continue to take a look at these two men's pathology to be able to pull out some red flags, personality issues, traits, to look at how they got to where they got in deciding to murder their children. thank you all for listening and watching. And if you're new to the channel, I hope you will subscribe. And thank you to those who already have subscribed. We hit 1,000, and I thank you so much for your support. It's been awesome. I'll see you in the next video.